Hello, Jacqueline. Thank you for a fantastic presentation that really sort of summarized many, many years of work on Vespula. Very interesting to follow that work. I have a question about the poison bait technique that you were obviously suggesting was very effective in New Zealand. In Europe, it is a technique that has some controversy because of concerns about the environmental impacts. But if I understand correctly, in New Zealand, it's not been advocated for eradication of Vespula. It's just used in local areas where there's particularly high levels of Vespula. So I just asking really whether you could confirm that. But also, if I could just ask a follow-on question, because it's also interesting that you clearly identify a need to find more environmentally techniques. So can I just maybe ask you to clarify that you're not necessarily advocating that this would be a successful technique in Europe, where we have a great diversity of other native social Hymenoptera?
Mm. Yeah, so I think your last point is bang on for New Zealand. We're lucky that we don't have native social Hymenoptera that we're concerned about. So one of the key issues, even in New Zealand though, is that it has to be something that wouldn't affect the bees, which is why the protein bait works really well, because the bees won't go for the protein bait. And so the registration for the product was very much around managing that whole bee risk. And so one of the things that the registration requires is that before you can buy Vespex, you have to complete a training course. So there's an online video, you have to answer a few questions and whatever. And actually, I'd love it if we did that for all agrochemicals and said, you must demonstrate that you know how to use this product safely before we'll sell it to you. But the real key to why I think it's a relatively safe thing to do is that the part of the protocol is you put out the poison bait only when you know, because you've done some trials with some non-toxic bait, you know that you've got wasps that are interested in that product. Normally what happens is the wasps are at high enough density that they monopolize that bait, and then after a day you remove the toxic bait, and that's it. That's enough to get 90% control. And so the length of time it's out is minimal. It's monopolized by the target species, and because of the way it works in New Zealand in particular, there aren't many non-target species that ever get a look in at the bait. So, whether there's any elements of that might be adaptable to Europe's system, I don't know, but I know that the makers of fipronil were very reluctant to register it in New Zealand because of the issue of honeybees. Fipronil is highly toxic to all social insects. I mean, it's used for control of ants, and there are concerns that it potentially would affect, well, it would, if it got into honeybees, it would absolutely kill honeybees. I can't remember if I answered all your questions.
Thank you so much. Other questions? No more questions?
I see there's one popped up from Juliet around, do we have any issues of insectivorous animals who would eat the intoxicated wasp nests? Yeah, so it's a really good point, is that following the fate of that fipronil through the system is a challenging thing. So New Zealand has very few animals that we would worry about that would scavenge. So the most likely thing to go for them is introduced mammalian predators. We've certainly seen mice, for instance, scavenge the nest, but mice and rats are considered a major pest in New Zealand as well, so we would be very we do spend an awful lot of time and money trying to get rid of the rodents in any case. So we have no native mammals apart from a couple of species of bat. So again, the context of New Zealand makes that less risky probably than Europe.
No more questions? So I am aware that it's late in New Zealand, so thank you, thank you very much, Jacqueline. And so we will pass to the next speaker. See you soon, Jacqueline.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.